Khan Younis is a municipality of 300,000 people located in the southern region of Gaza. Plans for a regional park were drawn up in 2005. It is within this area that the Global Gardens of Peace, an organisation founded by Australian Moira Kelly, was granted the use of 32,000 square metres of land to design and build a special garden for children and for families. Gardens are important for children and for the people of Gaza as places to delight in nature and for developing a passion for plants. Gardens are places to enjoy the natural world, to go for a walk and to gather with family and friends. Gardens are places of healing, for replenishing the spirit and for nourishing the soul.
We've included 3 different levels of space. The first level is a real retreat space. It's quite enclosed, overhead canopy, very safe, very nurturing. The second level is an emerging space where they can see people coming and going, they're a bit closer to the action. The third level is a social space, and that's where they're right on the edge of all of the action. They can be included in it, or they can choose to wander off back into a more secluded space.
Gardens are safe places for children to play and to develop physically and socially. Gardens provide places to celebrate living through art, through performance and culture. The role of design in creating a garden is to identify and prioritise the needs and desires of the community, to assess the natural properties of the site and with available resources imagine and create a plan for something extraordinary, beautiful and challenging. Design transforms the imagined into a state of reality. Andrew Laidlaw heads the design team, which includes Wendy, Clarke and David Wong. Andrew is the principal landscape architect for the Royal Botanic Gardens in Melbourne and has won numerous design awards for landscapes, including the renowned Ian Potter Foundation Children's Garden in Melbourne. He directs his own landscape design company, teaches at university and is a presenter on a garden talkback radio program. Wendy designs private and public landscapes to create environments conducive to emotional healing and spiritual connection. She directs her own well-awarded landscape design company and in this project has represented the needs and aspirations of women in the design of the garden. David is a designer, artist and educator. He has worked with Andrew on several projects, including the award-winning Children's Garden. David's participation ensures that people will connect with the landscape through the use of design, culture and community art projects. His work in education guides children and adults in exploring the world through creative play. Other people supporting the design team are facilitated by Peter Symes, who is coordinating the technical research and support with operations. He works as a horticultural expert at the Royal Botanic Gardens in Melbourne, where his involvement included the Children's Garden. He will bring his expertise on management of plant environments and his recent experience in Gaza to this project.
The stage is determining what our water footprint is, and then in a day because we have to meet that daily peak demand. And then we have to determine storage if we're not delivering it on tap. So it's either energy storage or water storage or both. But it's then working out what energy we need to. Essentially it's the water volume and the energy volume at the moment. The advantage of drip is we could run it during the day. The disadvantage is, even in our gardens, we find that this gets chopped through, broken.
Peter's technical advisory team includes John Rayner, Michael Jorgensen, Simon Leake and Jeff Canellan. John Rayner is a senior lecturer in urban horticulture at the Burnley campus, University of Melbourne. John has a keen interest in plant performance and planting design in community and therapeutic settings and is assisting in the selection of plants for the garden at Khan Younis. Michael Jorgensen is the principal hydrogeologist at an international company which specialises in engineering, construction and technical services. He is providing expert advice on the feasibility of renewable energy and the generation of a suitable, secure supply of water.
They're going to need 0.13 megalitres a day. That's the average. I'm worried about the peak demand because evaporation there during the northern summer is 7 mil a day? So that's why we're looking at a reverse osmosis plant that could supply something more like maybe half a megaliter a day, and then we'll need the associated solar panel array or wind or some other one that could provide a reliable power with a backup, whether it's battery or diesel generation. Well, because the diesel output is so fresh, they're probably going to have to mix off the shandy that output with some other water like groundwater, and to be able to get it to a salinity that the plants are happy with.
Simon Leake is the Principal Soil Scientist at SESL Australia. He will provide comprehensive soil design and soil management expertise for growing urban and ornamental vegetation. Jeff Canullen provides expert water management advice on turf, tree, landscape and botanical garden sites. He was a senior staff member with the University of Melbourne at the Burnley campus and is currently consulting on sustainable green spaces. Jeff will be contributing his expertise on green space, irrigation and water management.
We consider the amount of water that we actually need, and also too, just as importantly, the quality of the water. Once we've got the water available, then we can look at the methods of applying the water in terms of the types of irrigation, particularly regarding whether they be drip or spray, and then we would look at the method of actually applying it. Should we apply deep amounts of water to the root zone so that they will have plenty of reserves when you have the demands of the climate impacting on the plants, or do you put it in shallow amounts? And that will depend upon the plants that the designers select and what.
Andrew, Wendy and David began the design process by bringing together experiences, ideas and inspirations. While Andrew and David have been to Gaza, Wendy has not. To create a common basis to inform the design, they have consulted with Palestinians living in Melbourne, Gaza City and Khan Younis. The aspirations and needs of the Palestinian people form the significant design and cultural criteria for this garden. Their background research into the history of the area included handwritten and photographic accounts dating back 100 years. These described fruiting orchards and vegetable gardens with crops of apricots and watermelons. While this garden has a strong focus on children and play, it aims to welcome people of all ages from 1 to 101. Children can play safely in a natural environment. Families and extended families can gather for a picnic. People of different religious backgrounds and political affiliations are welcomed, and people of different abilities will be able to access and experience the garden. For security of the site and for the supervision of children, a fence will be placed along the boundary. Trees will surround the perimeter, creating a green edge to the garden. 2 entrances are proposed, both accessed by the main road. The main entrance will be formed by a colourful garden of flowers and dramatic plant forms, which could include plants such as Alcea rosea, Bougainvillea spectabilis, Iris alrafusca, Helanthemum vesicarium, Papaver polytrichum and Erginea maritima. A second entrance leads to the vegetable gardens and orchards. This will be the service access for maintenance vehicles, equipment and for deliveries. The main gate opens into a large lawn surrounded by trees and shade structures. Outdoor tables and seating intermingle with barbecue facilities. Access to water, amenities, information, first aid and vendors make this a natural choice to gather for picnics or for a game of chess, draughts or backgammon. Children will find markings on the ground encouraging games such as Hajla and hopscotch. Also nestled in this area are multifunction tent structures, which could be used for craft, education, meetings, a library, access to computers and the internet, and for receptions. The large sheltered platform structure doubles as the main staging area for performance, music and cultural events.
This is, a large paving. Now, this could be exposed aggregate concrete, it could be large slabs. And then we've got our tents. Now, the first tent, I've mapped this out for the toilets and administration and security. This one is more the library classroom. Okay, so again, we might choose to reconfigure this, but I just called it that. I've put the seats in here. I've built part of a little stage out here. So it just allows an outdoor classroom, but it would be where the library would be, for example, that they talked about. And then this one I've bought as another cooking facility. So we've sort of got these spread out for the general.
And we were looking for something that would give people some shelter from the wind, from the blowing sand, from the sun. And the shapes that came to my mind immediately was something with a really soaring peak to it. We've come across some magnificent shade sail structures that just soar and loop and create the most amazing lines. And there'll be landmarks where the mums can see the kids, they can meet at this particular area with maybe flags hanging off it in a particular colour.
The inspiration for these shelter structures comes from the tents of camel caravan traders and Bedouins, now reinterpreted by using modern materials and engineered framework.
That the women walk and they badly want to walk together. You know, they just walk around something beautiful, a nice path that was beautiful, that they could still see the children and what the children were up to, so that the children's safety is always paramount. But meanwhile, they could get a lot of support from each other. So walking and talking is really important to the women. So this path that we're creating that will wind its way around the garden is just so important.
During our consultations, women have expressed a need to walk and for open play areas so they could supervise their children. The design of the garden has a main walking path following the perimeter. This path meanders through orchards and vegetable gardens, stands of tall trees, lush and colourful plantings, and leads to peaceful settings for reflection and quiet conversations. Smaller paths lead off to play landscapes and playgrounds for children.
In an urban environment, we are discovering, especially in major cities, such as New York and Shanghai, there's a great need for people to walk. So when we hear that the people in Gaza are very interested in having places to walk, it is quite synonymous with the rest of the world. In New York, they developed something called the High Line, which is an old railway line, which has been turned into a garden of 4 or 5 kilometers in length. In Shanghai, they put in a circular bridge where people walk in circles way above the traffic line, and this is proving very important for the urban landscape.
This 500-metre walking path is completely level and is negotiable by people of different abilities, including the young, the old, and those in wheelchairs. Large and small group seating will be located at regular intervals along the path, providing shelter and places to rest while maintaining visual access for supervising children at play. We recognise that it is at play where children are at work, exploring their physicality through risks and challenges, discovering how the world works and what things are made of. They learn to get along with other children and find their own meaning in the natural and built environments. The garden we have designed encourages these natural processes within a safe environment.
Research shows that children use a form of scientific methodology in which to investigate and explore the world, and they do this from the day they're born. They do this through what we call play. So when we realize that play is actually a very integral part of the growing up, they also learn how to interact socially, how to live with other people. Play in the natural environment, such as a garden, is very important because nature is part of 83% of everything we use. So we want to have children realize that they're part of the world and part of the natural plant life.
For the young toddler, there are several small-scale playground areas conveniently located near the entry. This allows families with very young children to play close to their extended families, amenities and support staff. The main path from the entry area gradually descends through a maze of growing plants and curved walls.
We have this series of mazes, and these are shapes and forms that again have their beginning in traditional garden forms. And these forms are really fluid, and those forms may take adobe walls, they may be stone walls, they may be plants. But also some of the patterning that we see on many of the tiled surfaces, which are very old and traditional, within old and traditional gardens in the Middle East.
Two of the many significant contributions from Arabic culture to the world of design and architecture include the lyrical forms of its alphabet and its strict geometry of its architecture. The organic next to the strong form is something that is quite prevalent in the Arabic culture, and it is something we also want to capture in our design for the children's maze garden.
Curved topiary walls mingle with walls constructed from materials of the earth. As abstracted forms, they draw their inspiration from the Arabic alphabet and are arranged loosely in a geometric pattern, as often found in architecture of the region. This brings a sense of place and culture into the landscape. Multiple openings allow for non-prescribed play. Children run around the forms, ducking and weaving through openings. Games of chase, tag or hide and seek find a natural home here. Plans with sculptural qualities alternate with seating in the tucked away pockets of these forms. The path continues to the central oasis, an open water play area surrounded by tall graceful palms and large limestone boulders. In history, the oasis represented physical and spiritual refreshment. It is a secure retreat where flowing water, shade from the harsh sun and exuberant foliage provide contrast to arid conditions outside. This is the lowest part of the garden, and like a gorge following a riverbed, leads to the iconic wadi. The Quran speaks of the fourfold forms of sacred architecture reflecting perfection and order in the universe. Often these spaces contain 4 channels of water, representing the rivers in paradise, always cooling, cleansing and purifying. The element of water moves and overflows while expressing the eternal pleasure of the spring. Our oasis has 4 waterfalls, which flow in channels flooding the misty floor with an engineered sheet of water only millimetres thick, ensuring the safety of children. Jets of water spurt intermittently from spouts hidden in the ground, providing moments of surprise and joy.
One of the key elements to this garden is very much part of the garden tradition of this area, of the Middle East area, and it was about creating a paradisos, or an oasis. And what we would hope to achieve here is out of the rocks would be this water that spills out, and that there's sound and it's expressing itself and it's coming out of the ground, and then it will run in 4 rills, but these rills will basically come to a central feature which will just be a very small amount of water that would spill out over the surface, almost like a puddle, and then it would move underneath and be taken away. To the side of the oasis are these quite steep climbing walls, and these will be built out of this beautiful limestone that we saw in the West Bank, and kids will be able to climb up those walls, find little caves and almost like rock mazes, but they'll come up to the top of the walls, and hopefully we'll plant those with olives.
The water used in this play area is contained in its own cycle and will not commingle with the irrigation or with potable water. This water drains through small openings in the paved floor into a catchment and will be filtered and treated to the highest quality before it is recycled. The path continues and leads to undulating sand dunes with courtyards and rooms made of stonework and adobe. These buildings with their narrow winding corridors are inspired by the architecture of historic Palestinian villages. Some of the walls will have openings suggesting doors and windows, some will house courtyard gardens, and others with lawns planted on top offer picnic opportunities for families. An open area in the centre of the village has its historic reference in the marketplace. This is where children and families can gather to watch performances, music and dance. At the tallest point of these terraces, a tree house rises, giving children a view over the entire garden. Winding paths connect the buildings on the ground, while ladders and bridges connect the buildings from above. This scaled-down version of village life allows for unprescribed play. Children run, climb and jump, make cubbies and engage in role play and domesticity.
We've created a village type feel here, and this was very much inspired by the old villages that used to, and in some places still exist within old Palestine. So what we've tried to do here is call on that sense of a village, and these little areas are broken down into what once would have been little laneways or pathways, but this whole arrangement of exciting different spaces exist at that lower level.
Beyond these terraces lie small orchards of fruit and garden beds for growing vegetables and herbs. The inspiration comes from the successful kitchen garden located at the Children's Garden in Melbourne, where children are fully involved in planting and harvesting vegetables. Kitchen gardens are included in the curriculum for many Australian primary schools. Children develop a greater appreciation of nature when they learn to care for plants through soil preparation, nurturing, harvesting and collecting seeds. Plants proposed for the orchard and food gardens could include some of the following: Citrus aurantium, Ficus sycamoris, Morus nigra, Olea europea, Punica granatum, Rose marinus officinale and Vitis vinifera. Between the walking track and the children's landscapes are areas designated for playground equipment. The equipment will be selected on their ability to relate with the elements of the garden landscape, materiality, and the provision for prescribed, non-prescribed or creative play. Age and ability appropriateness will be another factor. These will include rope courses, climbing frames, swings and giant swings, slides and giant slides, a flying fox, hammock, and pod swings and special slides and swings for the toddlers. Plants with a track record in durability and withstanding soil compaction will be nominated for these areas. Some of the plants which have performed well in the Melbourne Children's Garden will be included for use in these areas.
Rope swings, which are just large timber poles with a range of different ropes on them. And the beauty of the rope swings is that they create a whole different level of activity. From kids that are very young, can walk along quite low-hanging ropes, to really presenting some challenges. But it also relies on the kids communicating and negotiating between themselves. So there's lots of good things to learn from that. And on the other end of that, we might have a flying fox, which is also something that's incredibly exciting.
While play spaces form a vital part of this project, the bigger picture is to design a beautiful garden. Andrew, Wendy and David have a passion for designing gardens and for using plants to create social and uplifting environments. With the assistance of Peter and his team, they are working towards a garden which is beautiful to look at, ecologically sustainable and performs well in the climate and soil conditions of Khan Younis.
The greatest challenges are probably the physical challenges on the site, so the environment certainly, soils, climate, plant supply I have a feeling is going to be a big challenge as well, just the location and getting material onto the site and then established. I think it's going to be quite a challenge, and I guess there's a social challenge as well in terms of looking at how you can deal with population who's in distress all the time.
This garden will host a diversity of plants showcasing colour, smells and tastes. The selection will provide seasonal interest, a wide range of textures, plant forms and plant parts, while maintaining a sustainable level of water consumption. The plants will also provide habitats to attract and sustain bird and insect life, as well as other local indigenous fauna. The collection of plants will feature local signature plants interspersed with some unique international specimens, of which an amount will be selected from Australia. The standout plants suggested for possible inclusion are Brachychiton astrofolius, Brachychiton rupestris, Callistemon, Capparis spinosa, Camarox humilis, Cupressus sempervirens, the stricter group, Delanex regia, Eucalyptus erythocorus, Eucalyptus almanifloia, Eucalyptus salubris, Eucalyptus spatulata, Lavandula cross christiana, Lavandula cross intermedia, Phoenix dactylifera, Pistachia atlantica, Pistachia palestina, Tamarix chinensis, Vitex agnus castus, and Washingtonia robusta.
So material selection right through the garden is really important and is a layer that we have to get right. And obviously we want to draw on, again, some of the older traditions, but we also want to draw on what is locally available, but also what can be locally built. The materials we choose here have to have a connection at a certain level to the place, but to the people.
We are assembling a unified palette of materials for use in the different areas of the garden. Our first preference is for materials from the earth such as stone, sand, wood and water, which provide direct connections to nature. To that layer, we add materials which have strong cultural and regional connection, such as concrete, steel, adobe and woven fabric. We are also including, for ecological and economic reasons, materials which can be safely recycled, such as concrete, building and road rubble, and rubber. Where new materials are required for systems for the supply of energy and water or in the manufacture of playground equipment, we will conduct an audit to ensure sustainable and ecological practices are followed in their fabrication and delivery. It is important to deliver a sustainable design with a small ecological footprint. This presentation represents the first stage of the garden design for Khan Younis, and is the result of the significant design and cultural criteria gathered through consultations and research at the beginning of our process. While this design presents concepts and ideas, the final stage will be about design detail, specific plant lists, scaled drawings, and engineering details.
So we have still some major challenges, but yeah, I believe the belief is so strong that it's going to happen that I think I bring that to this project, and
that help them get close to nature again, that they will find a freedom within themselves that they can't necessarily find in their everyday life, for cultural reasons, for financial reasons, for just the reason that they're in Gaza, but that within themselves they could feel free. That to me is why we're doing it.
I realized that this was a very significant thing that children in that area are missing. And it's not so much about negating the effects of conflict, but it's about giving them a direction for the future.